Breaking news in the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. A person of interest was in custody but then released. That was Kirk just before an assassin took his life, doing what he had done thousands of times before, talking to college students when he was murdered in front of a crowd of hundreds.
Are you voting for Kamala?
I am.
Okay, what is her...
I have the details of the arrest that ended up not happening. Welcome to this breaking edition of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. I was going to tell you about an arrest being made in the murder of Charlie Kirk, but that ended up not happening. A person of interest was taken into custody and questioned, but then released. And this is actually the second false start in the case in just a matter of hours. Charlie Kirk was a conservative activist who woke up this morning and traveled to the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem to speak to college students. It was something that Kirk loved to do. He was the founder of Turning Point USA, and he had done this thousands of times before. Take a look. Kirk then took his seat under a tent and started to speak to the students, taking questions. It was 20 minutes into the event, around 12:20 Mountain Time, when someone in the crowd asked a question about gun violence, and at that very moment, the assassin fired. Kirk was hit in the neck. I'm not going to show the video to you. It's horrific. This 31-year-old husband and father of two young children started to bleed out immediately. Students ducked in horror, screaming. Kirk's bodyguards rushed him into an SUV in the hope of saving his life, and he was taken to the hospital, but nothing could be done. A man was detained, and it appeared a suspect was in custody immediately, but then that person was released. Then later, FBI Director Kash Patel tweeted, "The subject for the horrific shooting today that took the life of Charlie Kirk is now in custody. Thank you to the local and state authorities in Utah for your partnership with the FBI. We will provide updates when able." But guess what? Patel's information did not pan out. Patel later tweeted, "The subject in custody has been released after an interrogation by law enforcement. Our investigation continues, and we will continue to release information in interest of transparency." So the search for the shooter continues. Charlie Kirk leaves behind a wife, Erica, and two young children. Earlier this year, Erica Kirk posted a video on TikTok thanking Charlie for, quote, "being my love story." To discuss this just horrific turn of events, I would like to bring in Bob McEwen. He is a friend of Charlie Kirk's, and he's also a former congressman from the state of Ohio and a board member at Turning Point USA. Bob, first and foremost, my condolences go out to you and everybody at Turning Point and Charlie Kirk's family. How are you doing upon hearing of this news that he's been assassinated? He was murdered.
That's exactly correct. He really was. He gave his life. He impacted the nation more than anyone his age ever. He's like the president. There's no two of them. And it's hard to grasp where we are. He was winsome. He spoke truth. He had nothing to fear. He would just go on a college campus and sit in a chair and just share truth about life, liberty, and the right to pursue happiness, and a firm commitment to his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He was uncompromising, which then knew that the haters would come after him. He had security, but we hoped that this day would never come. And certainly for Erica and the children, I know how upset and distressed I am just to think how they must feel as a horrible few hours that we've endured.
You said that he had security, which, obviously was a good thing. But I mean, were there ever threats that he had received? Was he concerned about his safety, especially after what happened with President Trump and Butler, during the campaign? I mean, he's sitting out in these open air venues. Had he ever talked to you about being concerned for his safety or receiving threats?
The thing is that truth overcomes error, and error cannot tolerate truth. Error can speak with error, and they can just go on and have white papers and discussions and conferences. But once truth enters the room, they all turn on the truth. They have to only the left burns books, and only the left censors. And so he knew that his life was under threat on a regular basis, just really daily. And he, of course, we've talked about it. He could never take his children to the grocery store or never walk in the park alone. And Erica signed on to that program, recognizing that preserving the greatest hope in the history of mankind, the United States of America, was a noble calling, and he was willing to make that sacrifice. But as you can see, it was one bullet, a person prepared to take him out, and that assassin, who obviously was a hater, and he had to silence truth, because when Charlie had people talk about these things and they began to logically think, it made a tremendous change. We've always said that young people, you really didn't need to worry about them until after they got married, after they became parents, and after they got a job, that they would all become conservatives eventually. And so just let them talk about socialism and communism and things when they're young. But Charlie didn't believe that. He said, no, let's do it. Let's talk right now. And the shift has taken place that we've never seen, certainly in any of our lifetimes, that the most conservative demographic is 18 to 25. And it's no small responsibility that he did that across the nation and began to stand up after all of the lies that went on about COVID, and you need to stand so many feet apart, and you can't be there for your parents' funerals, and all these things that the young people began to question. Now, what is that? And when they questioned, he was there with truth, and truth was winning, and that's why they had to take him out.
Where were you when you heard that he had been shot?
Well, I was at my desk, and I got a call from his chief of staff, and mentioned that he had just been shot, and it was in the neck, and he wasn't sure. They had no more information than that, and it was a good 15 to 20 minutes after that it then broke on the news that he had been fired upon, and then we prayed, hopeful that he would survive, because I repeat, there's no two like him. There's no one to take his place, but nevertheless, so I'm reaching out to the staff. Obviously, lives have been upended. That was the goal. And all we can do is we think about what the president went through, and they made 2 attempts to get at him as well. And of course, we'll see who's responsible for it. Our nation was blessed by his service and his commitment to righteousness, as our John Adams said about our Constitution. It was made for a moral and a religious people. It's wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And so when his commitment and our commitment to preserving life, there are those that that arouses such hatred that we've experienced it today, unfortunately.
This is clearly a political assassination. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He was at an event he had hosted hundreds, if not thousands of times on college campuses, and somebody laid in wait to take his life. Do you expect federal charges to come of this? I would think possibly there would be, just because of the political nature of this.
Well, that's what's encouraging, that we do have a Department of Justice that's interested in justice. And while that wouldn't be such a critical point in a state like Utah, where they have common sense, but in places like New York, or the whole idea that they couldn't incarcerate people in North Carolina is why that stabbing took place. We have the same thing in California, and where you don't incarcerate people, that they have what called cashless bail. Cashless bail means that there is no bail. It's like when you steal a car, you can say it's a cashless purchase. So those people are allowed to roam boldly. But in Utah, I think that they would have done a good job. But nevertheless, fortunately, we have a Department of Justice under our current president that will make sure that justice is done. And so he's being prosecuted under the federal law. And under federal law, there is also the death penalty, as the scripture provides.
You gave the toast at Charlie Kirk's wedding. I mean, you were very close to him. You were a Turning Point USA board member. I mean, you'd known him for a really long time. I mean, just talk to me about that relationship.
Well, I repeat, there aren't two people like him. He was a full-time learner. He took 2 hours every day to learn. He began his day faithfully with exercise and time in the scriptures. And then he went to an education of, whether it be on Hillsdale or whatever, reading a book for 2 hours every day. And then he ran a massive organization, $100 million, over 1,000 employees just in the last election. A massive, a lot of people, they say they do a lot of things, but he actually did them. And as a result, I remember, as you know, under the last president, there was this effort to incarcerate anybody that was a conservative. We were at dinner one time. My wife asked that all the people at the table, had anyone there not had the FBI come knock on their door, and no one ever. All these are all people that you'd recognize their names. And I remember when the FBI came to my door, and of course the purpose that they do that is because it always costs you six figures or more just to respond to them. Not that you've ever done anything. We just want to talk. And I remember when they first came to our door under the last Department of Justice, which was so corrupt. And I remember Charlie said, "Bob, I'm with you. I've got your back." He was an ultimate friend. I thought, here's this little young fellow, younger than my children, and he was just so steady and so strong. And the President of the United States, indeed, an entire nation relied upon him for his strength. And you're seeing the reaction across the country. And the difficulty is young people. As you know, all of us that went to school, we all know that if you were a conservative, you were deeply in the minority. And that was the case up until just about 18 months ago or 20 months when it began to turn. And now you see when he shows up, just 2 years ago, Turning Point, when we would try to book him into a venue, the left-wing universities would make it impossible to speak. And if he was attacked, they wouldn't interfere. They wouldn't protect him when they were shouted down, and all the things that the left does to truth, because truth overcomes error. And so they have to shout them down. They have to silence them. They have to prevent them, drive people away. But about 18 months ago, all of that began to become so overwhelming that the kids began to show up in such numbers that they weren't able to do that anymore. And as you saw just today, that when the crowd, over 3,000 kids, as far as you could see, and the difficulty at that venue was the sound was not strong enough for all of the people that were there. There is a change that's taking place to our country. You see it religious, spiritually, churches, particularly Catholic churches, but many churches there's a growth. Bible sales this year are up 22% over last year. Young people are turning back to faith and to faith in their country. And he played no small part in that. And if that's doubted at all, I think you can ask any kid on any campus, and they can say, yes, I thought I was alone a couple of years ago. Now I see, because of what Charlie said and did, I can see that I wasn't alone. The people began to show up. And that's what's so encouraging about America. Is so excited. I'm more positive about our country I've ever been in my life. And that's why the haters are just so frightened, because they see America being restored to its roots. And he gave his life for that cause.
Bob, you had mentioned earlier Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica, just a beautiful woman. He has these beautiful children. I just can't even imagine what she is going through tonight.
Well, she is an exceptional woman. They've made great efforts to reach the young people. My two granddaughters just went to the conference in July in Texas, in which young, successful females got up and talked about purity before marriage, and the privileges of being a wife and mother, and having children, and all the things that bring genuine happiness, which of course the left diminishes. And I think about Erica. She was bright and talented, and when she was being interviewed for a job at Turning Point, it was a very beneficial circumstance for Charlie. because it was a high position, and they went out and for over 2 hours, he asked basic questions. How do you stand on this? And how do you feel about that? And at the very end, she said, well, what do you think? And he said, let me tell you, I'm not going to hire you, but with your permission, I would like to date you. And so she went back, and her girlfriends and her mother and everybody said, how'd it go? How'd it go? And she scratched it. She said, I don't know. But they fell very, very deeply in love. They're just two wonderfully, exceptionally mature people, American citizens. She's a daily communicant to her church. And it's a tragedy that we must remember her in prayer and uphold her to have these babies and now to be alone.
I can't even imagine. And my heart goes out to her. I don't care what your politics are. This is a tragedy and it's horrible. It should not have happened. Bob McEwen, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for caring.
And again, at the time of this recording, that second person of interest who was questioned and detained was released. So the search for the shooter is continuing. Charlie Kirk was just 31 years old. We will continue to follow this story and keep you updated on all of the developments. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me for this edition of Crime Fix. I'll see you back here next time.